Windows, Xbox, Excel, Explorer, Bing, and MS-DOS? Yes, we're talking about Microsoft. So how did a couple of college dropouts create a company the world relies on every day? It's time to find out. The early days, 1970s. It goes without saying that without Bill Gates and Paul Allen, our world would look very different today. The two childhood friends were computer programming experts that wanted to start up a business. Both Bill Gates and Paul Allen were college dropouts. Gates was a former student at Harvard, while Paul Allen studied computer science at Washington State. When Allen got the opportunity to work at a company called Rockwell, he dropped out of school. Gates ended up dropping out of his university after only 2 years. During the mid-70s, a microcomputer known as the MITS Altair 8800 was released. This computer became an inspiration for more than a few people. Steve Jobs looked at the 8800 and thought he could develop a more user-friendly computer. This would lead to the formation of Apple. On the other hand, Bill Gates and Paul Allen had the idea of creating software for the 8800 in the form of interpreters to run the basic programming language on the device. So how did the idea get off the ground? Gates called MITS, the company behind the computer, and demonstrated the interpreter, which would allow people to create programs to run on the computer. MITS was very impressed and made the decision to put it on the market. In 1975, this led to Bill Gates and Paul Allen creating Microsoft, spelled with a hyphen in the middle, its name being taken from microcomputer software. The 70s also saw Microsoft open their first international office, located in Japan. And by the end of the decade, the hyphen was dropped from the company name, and the state of Washington became the location of Microsoft's official headquarters. The 1980s, the age of Windows. Operating systems are one of the things Microsoft is most prominently known for. That history started in the 80s when Microsoft struck a deal with IBM to have their OS on the soon-to-be-released IBM PC. When other companies started making clone versions of the IBM personal computer, MS-DOS was still needed to run them, and Microsoft was now king of the operating system market. MS-DOS was an acronym for Microsoft Disk Operating System and preceded Microsoft Windows. Throughout the 80s, Microsoft continued to expand, but when co-founder Paul Allen was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, he had to leave the company. Allen has said that Gates demanded company shares back from him for doing less work. But when Allen left the company, he left with all of his shares and became a billionaire. Microsoft Windows, the family of operating systems we still use today, first came out in November of 1985. A few months later, Microsoft went public with an initial stock price of $21 per share, and the rise in that stock price created 12,000 millionaires and 3 billionaires within the company. Oh, and just as a side note, Microsoft stock these days hover around the $250 mark. Financially successful? You bet! The 80s also saw the first iteration of Microsoft Office, only it was called Microsoft Works at the time. This software bundle was designed to make office life easier and would launch Microsoft into the next decade. The 1990s. Start me up. With the 90s came a new graphic-based operating system for Microsoft, Windows NT. Microsoft also began selling their famous Microsoft Office suite, which came with both Microsoft Word and Excel. Today, the Microsoft Office family includes OneDrive, Outlook, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Teams, and more. When the newly accessible World Wide Web started to take shape in the early 90s, the Internet started to grow in popularity. Microsoft quickly adapted to the changing market, knowing how much the World Wide Web was about to change the world. They released the Windows 95 operating system, with the name reflecting the year in which it was released. Windows 95 introduced features such as a start menu and 32-bit compatibility. The company went all out with the Windows 95 promotion. It paid the Rolling Stones an undisclosed amount of money for the use of their song "Start Me Up" to use in advertising campaigns. This was in reference to the new Start icon. While Microsoft's web browser Internet Explorer was not included in the bundle, it would be in future versions. In present day, Internet Explorer is a relic of the past, having been replaced by Microsoft Edge. But in the 90s, Internet Explorer was revolutionary. Microsoft released the web browser as part of an add-on package for Windows 95 called Microsoft Plus. There was nothing like Windows 95 on the market at the time, which would explain why it became so successful. Outside of Windows, through a partnership between Microsoft and General Electric's NBC network, the American news channel MSNBC was born. If you've ever wondered where the name came from, the name is an amalgam of MSN, or Microsoft Network, and NBC. Microsoft, however, sold their stake in the MSNBC channel as well as the website 2 decades later. This resulted in the news website being rebranded as NBCnews.com. Before we check out Microsoft in the new millennium, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks! The 2000s, the Xbox, and more. At the start of the 2000s, Microsoft underwent a major change in leadership. Bill Gates stepped down from his role as CEO, taking on the new role of Chief Software Architect. So, who became the new CEO of Microsoft? That position went to Bill Gates' longtime friend, Steve Ballmer, who had been with Microsoft since the 80s. As the new leader of the company, Ballmer directed Microsoft's focus on devices and services. Microsoft released the Zune digital media player to compete against the Apple iPod. Unfortunately for Microsoft, the Zune was unable to win the music player battle and was ultimately discontinued after only a few years. For quite some time, Nintendo and Sony had dominated the video game market, but Microsoft entered the home game console arena with the Xbox. It was a far more powerful console than the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo GameCube. The iconic video game Halo: Combat Evolved was the first title released for the launch of the original Xbox. Halo was a massive success, spawning a multimedia sci-fi franchise that has lasted for over 20 years. The game's super soldier protagonist, the Master Chief, has even become the mascot for the Xbox brand. Microsoft Game Studios went on to publish a sequel called Halo 2, which featured online multiplayer through Xbox Live. The service allowed players to play both with friends and strangers online. Halo 2 became a major esport during the 2000s and was instrumental in the success of MLG, Major League Gaming. The game has widely been considered to be a pioneer of the modern gaming landscape. 4 years after the original Xbox, Microsoft launched the Xbox 360 to go head-to-head against the likes of the Nintendo Wii and Sony's PlayStation 3. Fortunately for Microsoft, they enjoyed continued success in the gaming market. Never straying far from its core business, Windows was updated with a new version called Windows Vista. This improved computer security and brought in a lot of new features. The Microsoft Office 2007 suite was also released the same year, allowing Microsoft to break profit records. 2 years after Vista's release, Microsoft debuted Windows 7, which was designed to be a more accessible version of Vista with better performance. In the 2000s, Microsoft also entered cloud computing with Microsoft Azure and created a chain of retail stores known as the Microsoft Store. They would eventually move the Microsoft Store to online only in 2020, closing all actual retail stores. As for Bill Gates, he left his role as Chief Software Architect at Microsoft before the end of the decade. He did stay on as an advisor at Microsoft and has worked in several other positions. The 2010s, Microsoft Product Expansion. The decade started out rough for former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer, who was not able to win the approval of everyone after replacing Bill Gates. He was criticized for failing to adapt to new trends, including the rise of smartphones and virtual headsets. Microsoft was still one of the most profitable companies in the world, but it trailed behind Apple and Google in the smartphone market. Microsoft did try, though. The Windows Phone was released in 2010, but failed to the last decade. In 2012, Microsoft underwent a massive rebranding and introduced a brand new logo. As tablets became more and more popular, Microsoft launched Windows 8 for both tablets and PCs. At this point, Microsoft was regarded as a tech company powerhouse that had been around for many years. But the Microsoft Surface was actually the first PC to be produced with Microsoft hardware and distributed by Microsoft. The Surface family includes tablets, laptops, and interactive whiteboards, and is still going strong today. To compete with Google's Gmail service, Microsoft ditched the Hotmail brand and brought it back to life as Microsoft Outlook. However, Gmail still beats Outlook by a landslide. It's estimated that Gmail has around 1.5 billion users, while Outlook hovers around 400 million. A motion sensor called the Kinect was introduced for the Xbox 360 at the start of the decade. The device detected players' movements, which interacted with Kinect-compatible video games. For a time, people were deeply fascinated by the technology and thought it was going to be the next big thing. When Microsoft unveiled the Xbox One, the successor to the Xbox 360, Kinect was planned to be an integral part of the next generation of Xbox. The camera had received a major upgrade and was now much more powerful, precise, and even supported 1080p HD. It was said that the Kinect was so accurate, it could detect changes in skin color to measure a person's heartbeat. The other features? Kinect worked in the dark, included a microphone, and was required to always be on and stay connected to the internet. That's not creepy at all. This raised major security concerns and led to quite the backlash, and played a part in the PlayStation 4 crushing the Xbox One in sales. Microsoft had no choice but to eventually remove Kinect entirely. Microsoft also received backlash on their distribution of HoloLens. HoloLens was a pair of mixed reality smart glasses, but the technology was supplied to the US military, and this angered many Microsoft employees, as they did not sign up to develop weapons. The CEO at the time was Satya Nadella, who took over for Steve Ballmer when he stepped down as CEO. Nadella still serves as the CEO of Microsoft today. Throughout the 2010s, Microsoft made many acquisitions, including Nokia's devices and services, Minecraft video game company Mojang, the Israeli security firm Hexadite, and the software development platform GitHub. But two of their largest acquisitions were LinkedIn and Skype. And for some reason, Microsoft decided to skip the number 9 with the launch of Windows 10. Before the end of the decade, the company also launched the search engine Bing. Of course, most people still just use Google, but Bing has still become the world's third most used engine. The 2020s, streaming and the Metaverse. Fortnite streamer Tyler Blevins, aka Ninja, currently has the most followed channel on Twitch. But did you know that Microsoft paid Ninja millions of dollars to stream exclusively on Mixer, their rival video game live streaming platform? Mixer was supposed to give Twitch a run for its money. Despite Ninja's presence on the platform, Mixer was unable to come anywhere close to Twitch's viewership. It was decided that Microsoft would pull the plug on Mixer, with the service shutting down in the middle of 2020. The shutdown freed Ninja from his exclusive deal and allowed him to go back to streaming on Twitch. The year of 2020 also saw Microsoft update their Xbox consoles with the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. The reception to this generation has been very positive, the exact opposite to the disastrous reveal of the Xbox One. But the pandemic has put a damper on just about everything. With people spending more time at home and playing video games more than ever, the combination of high demand, a global chip shortage, and online scalpers means that many people have not yet been able to purchase a new console. Recently, Microsoft started their near $70 billion acquisition of video game company Activision Blizzard. This means that massive franchises such as Candy Crush Saga, Call of Duty, Overwatch, and Diablo would soon be owned by Microsoft. Commenting on the acquisition, Microsoft claims it is a strategic move as they look to take advantage of the rise of the Metaverse. Windows 11 has become the latest iteration of the Windows family, offering a new start menu, a redesigned taskbar, new Windows Media Player app, and more. As Microsoft sets their sights on the future, they have already acquired Nuance Communications and ZeniMax Media at the beginning of this decade. At one point, Microsoft was even in talks to acquire TikTok. As a result of Microsoft focusing on cloud computing, the company's shares have skyrocketed, reaching their highest value since the late 90s, making Microsoft one of the most valuable companies in the world. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And stick around and tap on another video.